Well, in Delta, Utah, I mentioned that we walked a mile, but it was a big school. There were like 60 kids per grade and 2 rooms with 30, I'd say kids, I guess they were children, in each room. We come to Montana and the schoolhouse is down in Dad's field. And it has 2 rooms in it that are separate. Well, they used to just have curtains in between them. And there were 8 grades, 4 grades per room. And there was a teacher, it was her first year teaching, and her name was Catherine McCauley. And she was a little Scots lady, just as neat as a pin and good looking. And there were 8 students in the upper grades, upper 4 grades. There was one girl and I in the 5th grade, and just about 2 kids per grade in the upper grades. I think there were a few more in the lower grades, but not many more. And that was really a cultural shock from that school to that school. And I'd been a top student at Delta. Well, I was the top student because there was just one other girl in the class, and she wasn't awfully smart. Well, it really was a cultural shock. But one nice thing about it is kids played football, and they played 6-man football, but the girls got to play. And I loved to play football. In Utah, they'd never thought of letting a girl play football with them.
Right.
So that was a plus. But all we'd do is just run out the door and run down to school. At noon, we'd come home and have lunch and go back to school. But we did have an excellent teacher. It was her first year teaching, and she taught there for 3 years. And the woman that took her place, she went on to a bigger school. The woman that took her place says that we had tested so high in the scores, in the Iowa basic scores, I guess, that it had made her future. I mean, obviously they were very, very good teachers for us to have learned as much. We had almost like having tutors, so that was it. The boys can be so mean, and Miss McCauley was such a neat lady, and dressed just real elegantly, and the boys liked to tease her. And one time they caught a mouse, and she had a little bell that would sit on her desk, and when she'd change classes, or she'd take it to the door at recess to ring for us to come in. And they put a mouse under the bell. And I'll never forget her standing up on her chair and then up on top of the desk. And another time she was an elegant little lady, and I just loved her. But they put honey on the seat of her chair one time. And she got mad. And I thought it was awful.
Were these your brothers that did that, or other kids?
Other kids. My brothers wouldn't. Well, I mean, they went along. But one thing that my brother did with his friend is Garth. They could crawl under the schoolhouse, and their seats were in the back of the room. They were the biggest boys in school. And they put a wire, they bored a little tiny hole underneath her desk, and hung a big clump of iron underneath the school to a rope, to a thin cable. And then they put it back, had things to hold it along the floor underneath, and then they took it where they could lean over and tie their shoelace. And during school they would lean down, tie their shoelace supposedly, and that clunking, she never could find out what happened. I thought that was kind of neat. Anyway, she taught school until Miss McCauley than Martha Howard. She was a good school teacher, but her mother told me once Martha was so grateful I tested so high that she got into a much bigger and better school. So
Well, how come the school was on your property, wasn't it?
it was there when we bought the property.
Oh, it was.
The Montana Park Company had given them a piece of land, and it had outhouses. They didn't have any bathroom, but we really had good teachers. It was so close to Great Falls that it was an ideal place to be because they weren't stuck out in the country. Women teachers, they weren't stuck out in the country. One woman that was teacher in the lower grades, her parents lived in the community. But I felt like it was almost like having a private tutor. When Mom had she had 4 babies in Montana, and I remember reading a letter that Mom had talked to the teacher, and she said it wouldn't hurt Donna at all to miss. When you had babies in those days, you stayed in the hospital in Great Falls for 2 weeks in bed, flat on your back, because they didn't have beds that rolled up. And so I would stay out of school, but then I found I could take my charges to school with me and take care of them there too.
You really like school.
I liked school.